selling rewards people who are uniquely brilliant. So you need to have some uniqueness to you as well, as a person and as the process if possible. Again, when we were working with Mini, they said, how do we reimagine the automotive sales process? When I was working there, I had been brought up that there are steps in the sale and you must follow those. And the Mini guys said, well, if everyone else is doing that, why don't we try and do something different?
Hello, I'm Chris Lisserman and welcome to Sparks, a series by Interactive Workshops. In every episode, we discuss how to spark something new in our work and life, from how to spark a conversation, to how to spark a pay rise, to how to spark a small team, so that we can avoid those meetings that should have been an email. This week, we're discussing how to spark sales. We'll discuss how to be commercially successful or take our success to an even higher level of performance, whether we're selling products, services, or selling ourselves. And I'm excited to be joined once again by Jonna, CEO and founder of Interactive Workshops.
Thank you, Chris. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, as always.
We're going to get into sales as a topic here. And I want to start with your background, Jonna, in sales enablement. How did you get into this?
It was the last thing I wanted to do, I'm going to be honest. I had a mentor that was in leadership development, and that's what I wanted to do. And then when I got my first job at BMW Group, and I was in retail learning and development, and I thought, oh, what's that? It turns out that's sales and how to be good at retail. And my mentor looked down on me and basically said, yeah, you don't really want to be in that. That's not the sexy stuff. But it may not be sexy, but it's got a lot of scale. I mean, there's a lot of people who sell things who need learning development, who want to grow. And as one of our clients said to us, if you did the ROI on learning and development in sales properly, no one would ever believe you.
It's true.
It's a really impactful thing. And so I started off in retail learning and development at BMW Group. I took responsibility for global sales certification for BMW Group as part of a group working out how to benchmark salespeople. Firstly, that was for the Mini brand, and then I took over sales enablement for Mini and BMW brands, and that included all sales management, and sales assessment, certification. And as I started getting into this topic, it's like, this is actually really cool, isn't it? So we could do leadership development, which is quite nebulous, but I'm assessing a salesperson, like maybe I'm doing an actual assessment. Can they ask open and closed questions? And I'm assessing, and I'm also doing role practices, and I'm also training them. And given my psychology background, it's like, wow, this is actually really interesting. So, we can look at someone's people skills and quantify the value of it in sales, and work out who to hire, work out what skills gaps to close. I could train someone, this is how to deal with an objection well. This is a good process. And then watch whether they can execute it. And if they can't, you know that when a customer says, you're only showing me silver cars, why can't I have this car in black? And if they can't handle that, they're not like to sell the silver car. So,
right.
A used car salesperson, they need a lot of selling skills. I thought that was really cool. And then the more I got into it, the more I realized it's also very commercially valuable. It's a massive area. Every company has salespeople. And I went from not wanting to work in sales at all to being really passionate. And I used to say to the guys at the courses that I'd run, every bit of revenue in a company is driven through the salespeople. So you're the most important people. If you're doing a good job, if you're doing a really good job, we will be really successful. If you're not, we won't. And it's it all rests on you.
Yeah.
And I looked in the HR files and found out, when I was also a bit in HR, and so I looked in the folders and found out that some of the salespeople were making more than the CEO of the country. It's like, well, okay, so this is cool stuff, selling.
Yeah. A very interesting topic. And like you said, all businesses have sellers, need to sell to survive. But given that, why aren't we prioritizing selling?
I don't know, Chris. I really don't know. Like, why are we not? I guess a bit like maybe the cleaning in a company. Sometimes it's kind of like the selling bit's pushed down to some people to do. Not just recognizing
a job to be done. It's just a necessary evil kind of.
I think Sue, who cleans our office, she is one of the most important people here.
She's incredible.
Imagine if our office was filthy.
Yeah.
How demotivated it would be.
Yeah, be awful.
I think it can be like that with sales. We don't recognise just how important they are. They're the most important people. We talk a lot about how we need amazing leaders. Show me, especially in big corporates, which leaders made really radical decisions that massively impacted and changed what common sense leaders would do. Where's the delta on there? Whereas every bit of revenue comes through salespeople. So they're pretty important, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. And you can't argue with there's obviously very tangible results with salespeople and the sellers.
How many other people are in that kind of job?
Yeah.
I mean, all sellers, give or take, are in a job where every day, week, or month they can be assessed whether they've succeeded or not, and they can be compared apples with apples to peers. They have to work. They have to be good. They have to be good every day. They have to work hard. And if they have a bad year or a bad season, they're pretty fired.
And in your work with sales individuals, leaders, teams, is there a particular sales mindset that you've seen outperform any other?
I have to think about that. There's lots of ways to get the job done, isn't there? There's a lot of ways.
A lot of tactics, a lot of styles.
Yeah, I think through to the car sales guys, sometimes there's just like an old person in the back of the car dealership. They just sit there. Customers come in, they walk through the entire dealership and go and speak to that person about their car. They've been there a long time. They know what they're doing. They're not really trying to sell anything. They're just building relationships, and they do it so well that it doesn't matter how bad the car was. People are going to come back to Brian or Jane or Janet or whatever to get the next car. And other people are working really hard out there, really putting the effort in, the hard yards. There's so many different ways of doing it. But I guess the top people share some values around wanting to have integrity, do the right thing. There's got to be some elements of hard work. Though I do think a lot of salespeople, if there's a bit like sports people say, I've put in all the sacrifice, put in all the heart. Yeah, but what if you could win without it? You'd still do that, wouldn't you? So I think some of them are also, don't put in the hard yards and do succeed.
And maybe working smarter rather than harder.
Congrats,
Yeah. That's interesting, yeah. And whilst there might not be one sales mindset that outperforms any other, or at least from our experience, we haven't seen that. Like you say, there are those characteristics that might underpin a good salesperson. Is that kind of flair for selling something that, in your mind, is something we're born with, or something that can be learned?
Yeah, I reckon so. It probably is one of those two things.
It's a paradox.
I think
a bit paradoxical, maybe.
I mean, there are some naturally influential people, aren't there? And selling is a form of influence to some extent. There are some naturally warm people. Selling is a game of connection as well. There are some naturally intellectually clever people, and selling is a game of rational, logical persuasion. Sales is a game of effort. It's a game of passion. I think, I also never wanted to sell. So even when I was at BMW, even when I was doing sales leadership, if people say, maybe you should go and sell for a bit so you can see how hard it is. And okay. No, thank you. I didn't want to go and sell cars.
No.
However, when I then started to run a company, the first thing I go and try and sell some stuff. And maybe a bit like Eskimos and Snows, there should probably be many words for sell. Maybe soft sell, hard sell, we have that, but collaborative sales and consultative sales and all the different types of sales. There are complex sales. There's many different types, and I'm a very relationship-based person, but I also like to do a kind of conceptually creative sale, and I try and create an idea or a thought process that's so radically exciting that people want to do it. That's my kind of style, and try and put a good price ticket on it.
I think that communicates value in a good way, and in a way that's not in no way manipulative, in no way negative, in no way us versus them. I think that idea exploration is quite an exciting and a different approach to selling.
Yeah, and I think, but I also, the idea for me is crucial is you should have an alignment with your integrity. If you don't believe in what you're doing, if you don't believe in what you're selling, if you think it's a game, if you think you're manipulating people, if you think you're... Some of my best sales tricks only ever work once. If you trick a client, why do they want to come back? So a bit like in poker, if you're bluffing all the time, if you keep bluffing, then your bluffs won't work because
No.
people will just discount whether you're bluffing or not. Whereas if you bluff only occasionally, then it might work. And I feel a bit like that. Like if you're doing loads of sales tricks and loads of techniques, and do people, is that who they want to work with day to day? So I'm much more into the partnership model. Can you, without trying to use any techniques, win the deals?
Yeah.
And if you, because it'll stand on its own, then it needs no push. Like let's say you're thinking about proposing to someone and you decide to trick them into marrying you. It's not great, is it?
It's going to come back to bite you in some way.
Or if you use a technique to get them to say yes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So no, I'm like, let's get genuine partnerships that work for everybody.
Yeah.
And I guess our win rate, I think our win rate's 70-something% here. So I guess that works as well.
It's high.
It's high. It's too high. Should bid on more.
Should be
Should bid on more work.
Yeah. We talk a lot about outcome goals, and when it comes to sales, sellers will be setting goals, might have targets for the quarter, for the year. The only actions we can actually control are the inputs. How do we get that balance right? Because there's going to be sales numbers that we need to achieve or want to achieve, but we can only control some of these things that are a part of our job. How have you managed that?
Maths. You've got to. Selling is a maths problem. Let's say you need to sell 1 million of stuff. What do you need to bid on?
More than that.
More than that. You definitely need to bid on more than that.
Possibly double that.
Maybe
triple. More than that.
Yeah, I mean, if a good win rate's about 30%. If you're winning about 30%, you're probably bidding on enough stuff and winning enough stuff. But so there's a part of it is the maths. Have you got the right things in the funnel? Have you got the right? Are those? So that's one part. Are you bidding on enough stuff? And so sales does reward people who are busy because they're bidding on enough stuff. Yeah. Then you've got to also think, how's your risk spread? If I'm trying to sell £1 million worth of stuff and I bid on 3 million of stuff, does that sound about right to you? What are you thinking?
Probably not enough, is it?
You bid on more, okay? Yeah. But then you might do less good a job on each bid.
This is true.
Yeah, but the other question you should ask then is, what if it's one £3 million deal versus 1 million £3 deals? Yeah? In the first one, there's a good chance that you actually won't win it. Whereas on the second one, you're going to come very close if you keep repeating the frequency. So the maths bit is important, and you know, depending on what's going on in the marketplace, we sometimes try and think about whether we're trying to sell big deals or small deals. Is it key accounts or is it just close small things? Or, you know, I think sellers should try and work out what they're trying to do in the marketplace. So you've got what you're bidding on, and then how big those deals are, and then how hard you're working, and also how good you are. And you can probably work that out by comparing your close rate with your peers. You know, are you winning enough of the stuff you bid on? But within that, there's strategies as well. I know some people, for example, just want to target one sector, and that's what they do, and therefore they build up loads of creds, and therefore they get high success in their sector. Others want to spread their wins across sectors, for example.
Yeah, it's true. And with that kind of numbers game that you're describing, does that mean we should perhaps approach sales with in an approach where we're just trying to reach a number? We're just trying to do that many proposals with quality, but should we be just aiming for a number and trying to hit that number?
Well, the top sports people, who I happen to have written a very, very good book with,
you have
Olympic gold medal winning people. They separate out into process goals, outcome goals, performance goals. So the outcome is get a gold medal. Process is steps to deliver my best performance. Performance goals, how hard am I working in any individual training session? And I think sales like that, I wouldn't worry about whether you're going to hit your numbers or not. If I was in my heart of hearts, don't worry about that too much. The question is, are you doing the process to hit the numbers? And then within that, are you putting in a performance? So let's say if the process is write a proposal, go to a meeting, do the proposal, follow up, have a bit of negotiation, try and close the deal. Yeah. Is your proposal, the performance aspect, is that a really good proposal? Is your meeting, is that a really good meeting? Here's the killer. Is your follow-up, is that really good follow-up? You know, your negotiation, is that really good negotiation? So if you think about following that process and doing a really good job at each step of the performance, then the odds are you're going to do well if you work hard enough.
And I think typically we might think that one of those areas is more important, or the important area. Maybe we think it's the proposal. Maybe we think it's the negotiation. It doesn't matter what happens until then.
Yeah.
Not often do we think the follow-up is the most important part.
No. When in that process do you think people make their decision?
Probably just after the meeting,
Do you think?
I reckon. When do you think it is?
Early.
Yeah. First 7 seconds of the meeting or something.
I think it can be.
Yeah.
Maybe even before they contacted you, they could be thinking, actually, this company looks really good.
Mm.
So yeah, I'd work really hard up front. And I don't know, people, maybe we can smell whether we want to buy something or work with someone. You know, there's also other senses at play other than just, does it stack up?
Yeah.
And then another thing that I would say is important is, are you going about the process in a different way from your competitors? So imagine if you've got vendor A, B, and C. You go to visit vendor A, B, and C, or they come to you. They're all running the same process, and they've all got a broadly comparable product. How do you decide? Whereas if out of A, B, and C, if the company B or person B has got a unique approach, at least you're now splitting into two groups. Which approach do I like? A and C or B? You already turned what was a three-way discussion into a two-way discussion.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting, yeah. So you're not talking about the quality of what you're doing or the product you're offering. You're talking about the approach you're taking in selling it.
Selling rewards people who are uniquely brilliant. So you need to have, I think it works, it's important to have some uniqueness to you as well, as a person and as the process if possible. Again, when we were working with Mini, they said, how do we reimagine the automotive sales process? When I was working there, I had been brought up that there are steps in the sale and you must follow those. And the Mini guys said, well, if everyone else is doing that, why don't we try and do something different? And in sales at the time in automotive, the point was you had to present the product that you were going to sell and then take them for a test drive. And they said, well, why don't we just take them for a test drive straight away? And then I said, that'll be because which car are you going to take? How can you decide which model to go out in? He said, well, let's just take down all the barriers to a test drive. And let's just get them in the car. And then once we're driving, let's start talking or asking questions. And again, really interesting. So if you imagine you're buying you go to visit four dealerships to buy a car, you're not sure which one to buy, you've got a few, and you go to two or three of them and they're exactly the same process. And you go to Mini and the guys go, oh, come on, let's go. Let's grab a drink from the bar, get a soft drink, and let's go for a drive and talk about it. And you're driving around in the car thinking, oh, right, okay, yeah, I like these people. So there's a uniqueness aspect. And I'm really big into game theory. And I guess it's probably a game theory optimal play to have a unique selling approach compared to your competitors.
Yeah, I think so.
GTO, game theory optimized.
Okay, GTO, there we go. And then when it comes to those metrics that we might be tracking, you're running a business. What metrics are important to you?
As we talked about before, I think the total amount of pipeline that you're bidding on, your win rate are important. But all of those, the pipeline is a leading indicator. It's telling you what you might win. What you have won is a lagging indicator. It's telling you what you have won. And that's also why I wonder whether results are really the thing to focus on. So let's say I'm really looking at last quarter, how you did. That's okay, isn't it? But it's not making me win more for next quarter.
No.
So I try and focus on the leading indicators, for example, pipeline, meetings booked, work rates, things in bid. If I was in sales management, I'd try and get good data on those. And then I think, over time, you start to understand for each business you work with how those things are driven. And then you can look a level down and say, what are the drivers of success in those leading indicators? And then that's where the magic is. If you can work on that, warm leads or connections or whatever.
Yeah.
So that the working on the drivers of the leading indicators, the sales should just pop out the bottom really if you're good.
Should work like a funnel, and like a funnel should.
Yeah, but I guess the other part is whether you yourself fascinated by the selling process, and are you trying to learn something new? And I think that can give you a good edge if you're constantly trying. Let's say every week you decide to try one tweak to your routine. It keeps you interested. So, if you're just trying to perfect. I've got a friend who's a drummer in the West End, and he played the same show 600 and something times or more. How did he keep himself engaged? His idea was to try to hit each drum beat exactly in the middle of the acceptable range of a drum beat for every show. So, but that is quite reductive, it's quite intense. But the thing is, sales, maybe rather than trying to perfect your selling approach, I'd encourage people to keep experimenting with it and to keep trying new things and to have enough in bid that it doesn't matter if they lose a specific deal. I think that takes off a lot of the pressure. But don't do what my friend did when he went for a job interview. He asked me for some advice on how to sell himself, and I talked about the role of body language and matching. And afterwards, I said, "How did it go?" He said, "Well, I don't think I'm going to get the job." I said, "Well, why is that?" He said, "Well, the body language has fantastically matched the person brilliantly. So I built this incredible rapport. The only problem was I couldn't hear what they were saying because I was concentrating on the body language. So I couldn't answer any of the questions. So
yeah, it goes too far.
Don't go too far. But I do think, try and keep things fresh by changing your repertoire and also look for a stimulus outside of your work. So I draw a lot of stimulus from poker when it comes to sales.
Interesting.
There's the body language component, the maths component, and then the deal making component. And so when I'm looking, look at that for some stimulation and think, okay, well, how can I adapt my approach based on what the top poker players are doing, or maybe listen to some great podcasts and think, okay, how can I try something that someone else is doing? There's a ton of great stuff out there. Read some books. Yeah,
there's a lot we can be inspired by, and not necessarily sales books, like you say. It could just be that thing that inspires us, or there's something about the way a sports team play or the way they organise themselves and win that could be inspiring to us.
And why is it that when people go to Paris, they want to go to the Louvre, and when they go to the Louvre, they want to look at the Mona Lisa? I mean, why? That's the kind of thing that you could take that and say, hang on a minute, why is it that people fly to this city and then they go to a museum and they go to look at a painting that is exactly the same one everyone else is going to look at? How can I incorporate that in my sale? What do I need to be better at sales with that? Then, okay, well, I need an iconic image that's naturally going to capture people's attention. I need a venue that everyone's going to want to visit. I need to create a story about why we should go to Paris.
Some social proof maybe that other people are doing it.
Yeah, have you been to social proof? Would be good. Have you been to Paris?
Yeah.
Did you go to the Louvre? Yeah. Did you look at the Mona Lisa?
Yeah. Everyone does.
I'm just stood there thinking, why am I looking at this really miserable lady? Like, what's the point? Yeah. She's behind sheets of glass.
Yeah.
Is it a good painting? I don't know. You did graphical stuff at university. Is it good?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but you just do it, don't you?
Yeah.
There's some kind of influence at play that takes you there. And I think you're right. There's something we can learn from a lot of different stimulus like that could help our selling. What if someone came to you and said, I'm running a sales team, perhaps new to the role. I want to spark them. How do I go about it? What would you say to them?
Good. It's a good question. Let's start out with the facts of life. I reckon a lot of salespeople don't like the sales manager, really.
No. Awkward to admit, but possibly.
Yeah. I'm trying to think through the ones who've gone, I love my sales manager.
Have you never heard that?
I haven't heard it that quite like that. I mean, I know some really good sales managers.
Yeah.
Consistency, fairness, giving people the success, realising that the sales manager job is easier than the salesperson job.
Right. What do you mean by that?
Excel, desk, and spreadsheet. I mean, come on.
That's a sales manager job.
Meetings.
Yeah.
So, and then also probably they get a percentage of the commission of the sales team, so they don't have to sell the stuff, but they make the money from it. So I guess that's one part of it, which is, I'm trying to think of an analogous role actually, but like the head teacher at school. Did you people go, oh, I love the head teacher. I love that powerful figure that tells everyone what to do. And
no, I don't remember hearing that.
So I guess you want to be an inspirational sales manager, you need to be extremely fair. And if you've been working in sales and you've got people skills, then it can correlate that you can have favourites. And, if someone's doing really well, overemphasize them. I think another thing that I'd recommend for any good sales manager is get your dashboard up and get it really visible, so that people can see what is happening and that they get to understand what's happening, and people will work out then what they need to do. If you've got the right leading indicators and the right dashboards and the right communication, and then another thing they're really good at is just discipline. So let's run the same good meeting consistently well. Let's be fair. Let's not shy away from anything. And then the best sales managers are really good at coaching. So if you recognise that sales is a performance job, I'm thinking actually the really good ones are doing it now. They're very good in coaching. They're very good in human motivation. They're very good at managing individuals, but they're really good in coaching. If you can get your team to grow their skill set, you will do better and better. And a bit like we were discussing before about process versus outcomes. For the sales manager, hitting the result, that's a terrible goal. Your real aim should be to have the absolute most capable sales team you possibly can. And if you invest in that, the goals will come, and sustainably. But also other people will want to work for you. They want to work in your team. They'll say, Chris Listman's team, they're doing really well. If I go and work in Chris Listman's team, I will learn how to do that well. So you solve some of your talent pipelines as well that way.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And for anyone that's new to selling, or perhaps as we were talking about earlier, you found yourself in that role, you weren't expecting it, you didn't particularly want it. And you've talked about how finding our sales motivation is important, finding what kind of motivates us and inspires us to sell more or in a better way. What would you say to someone perhaps intimidated a bit by the idea of selling?
I'm probably not a good person to ask because I'm naturally quite confident. So I think that if you're starting out in sales and you feel you're not sure or you're nervous or you're reluctant somehow, you've got to find a mentor, and you've got to say, I'd say, look, can you help me? I found people when asked to help, most people, if you go to someone in the street and say, can you help me? A lot of people say yes. If you say, can you help me? Can you give me some money? I need a train fare. They think, actually, I've heard this patter before. This may or may not be true. They don't think, this person really needs a train fare. But most people, if you go to someone work and say, look, I'd really appreciate some help. Could you help me? Most people say yes. And if you're new to sales, I try and get a mentor that's going to see you through the turbulent times of getting started. You're going to have successes. You're going to have highs and lows. Probably at the start, you probably have quite a lot of successes because you probably work quite hard. Probably do a good job. Having some support to guide you would be good. And then again, as with many things, don't make your identity about whether you're successful or not. Be patient. The success will come.
Let's find that mentor and be patient as well. We're coming to the end of this podcast.
Oh no!
I know it's another one wrapped up.
Do we have to?
But before we go, I do want to ask you about how interactive workshops are working in this area of sales enablement with clients. What are we doing in this space?
We work. This is a really big area of learning development. Sales enablement is probably one of the biggest spends. Certainly, when we did our data last year, it's one of the biggest spends with us over even management and leadership development, over soft skills, personal development, over product training. But the game is moving on fast, and I think digital tools to do digital sales enablement is rising up massively. Sellers that I talk to also, and this could be the dark mind of sellers, but they like working from home.
Interesting.
They like autonomy.
Yeah.
So they like having on-demand stuff that they can get done. But I would also say they need a sense of belonging. They're obviously people, and equipping them with courses and programs is valuable. The pitfall I would suggest to avoid in learning and development is the over niching your content or your skill sets. So if you think about the way that sales works, is people basically assimilate a small set of things that they can do well. Let's talk about the analogy for football, our favourite other topic. But you might be good at dribbling. You might be good at defending. You might be good at shooting. You might be good in goal. You might be good at dribbling and shooting. You might be good at dribbling and defending. You might be good at defending and shooting. But you're probably not going to be good at them all. And also, are you really going to use the things that you're not good at in the match? You're probably going to try and find a way to do it with the things you're good at.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of sales enablement, they try to make selling more and more complicated. And then the salesperson, they're trying to make things more and more simple.
Right.
So imagine, I'm just trying to think of a kind of way of phrasing this to an example. But let's say you just want to go on holiday. You just want to go on holiday and have a nice time. But I'm super niching every different type of holiday that you could go on and asking you to be ready to go on all of them. Okay. And then so go to visit all the places and make sure that you've understood exactly how they all are before you go on holiday. All you really want to do is lie on a beach. And I think a lot of salespeople, the people themselves are trying to reduce the complexity. And sometimes in sales enablement, there's a kind of, every job's different, every role's different, this type of sale's different from that type of sale. And they are. It's trying to find that appropriate granularity.
Right.
But the salespeople in the end, if they were, let's say they were selling in company A, and now they move to company B, it's unlikely they're going to radically change how they go about it. And haven't you just hired them because they were succeeding or they were good, maybe?
Yeah.
So human beings, we tend to operate the same processes and do things the same way. Of course, we might change our process if the process is structured differently, but essentially, salespeople are trying to simplify things, not make them more complicated.
Yeah.
And I would advise that as the kind of start point.
Yeah, it's a good start point and a good thing to avoid falling into the pitfall of. That's all we've got time for, Jonna. Thank you very much for joining us. Join us next time when we'll be discussing how to spark productivity.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's been great to be here.
See you then. Thanks for watching this video by Interactive Workshops. Give it a like down below and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video. Click through to here or here to watch another video by Interactive Workshops.